This is just their introduction. What happened first?
You can see from there. So you just turn it off, and then on your 3 minutes, just ring the bell so they know they've got to wrap up. And when it's at 1 minute, just ring the bell at 1 minute. But it's just how we sort of manage things at Toastmasters, and it helps these guys because they know, especially once I tell them before they start.
There's number 3 there.
Now we're going to keep tight. So when you get to 3 minutes, it's going to be a bell. It doesn't matter where you're up to. Halfway through 3 minutes, you need to go to wrap it up. Well, we'll soon find out. Same rules for everybody, mate. And I'm assuming that Red City.
Hello, gorgeous. Hello, gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good crowd, really. Oh, the first one is when they
There's a
introduce
bus
themselves.
coming soon. You're all lined up ready for it. The lighting is terrible. You take 5 minutes. I'm sorry.
Go, Rachel. Yeah, that's it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm assuming everybody can hear me, and you'll let me know if you can't. My name is Robert, my surname is Phil. No one here probably knows me because I'm actually from Tamworth, moving here at some point in the future. I'll be your moderator this evening. And one of the jobs that I have is just keeping things flowing smoothly and keeping everything respectful. We have 6 teams represented here at the front table with the rest of their team behind them. And I want to let everybody know about the guidelines for our questions before we get started. And this applies to both candidates and members of the community. Now, how it's going to work is there will be a 3-minute introduction done by each group. And that'll be done by these wonderful people at the front. We have a timing light over there that they can see, and I don't think any of you can, which is really awesome. What's going to happen though is you will hear a bell at 3 minutes because their time is up at 3 minutes. Thank you very much. They will see a green light at 2 minutes, an amber light at 2.5 minutes, and a red light at 3 minutes. Now, once that bell goes, I will give them 15 seconds or so latitude to wrap up, but I will not give you 1.5 minutes to wrap up. So keep that in mind. Once the bell goes, if you're halfway through what you want to say, I'm terribly sorry, but we need to have some time for questions. So all the candidates, keep in mind you've got 3 minutes, 15 seconds to wrap up. Then I'll come looking for the microphone. The questions, each candidate or leader of a team will have 1 minute to answer, and the process is exactly the same, except there's a green light at 30 seconds, an amber light at 45 seconds, a red light and a bell at 1 minute, and they'll get 15 seconds to wrap up the answer to their question. Now, we do have questions in advance. They will be done first. If we have time, Greg will come round and take questions from the floor. Now, I do ask that, and I'm sure that they will, because they're in Port Macquarie and it's such a lovely place to live and such lovely people, but everybody shows respect for everyone else during this evening. Are there any questions from the candidates about the timing?
I was going to ask you where are the lights?
Yeah.
Just turn one on, please. Just turn one on. There we go. So you can all see them.
Can you remind me of the timing for the 3 minutes? 3 minutes, you'll see a green light at 2 minutes, an amber light at 2:30, and a red. Once you see red and you hear the bell, 15 seconds to wrap up your answer. Okay, now Greg's wandering around there somewhere, but I think you're going to use my microphone for your introduction. And Greg's told me I can start anywhere I like. So what's going to happen when this process starts is the microphone will always move towards me. When it gets to me, say it starts in the middle with Mark there, I'll take it to the other end. And that's just so that you guys know, once you've finished your time, hand it to the next person. All right, so because I've mentioned Mark, I'll start in the middle, and I must stress, being from Tamworth and being disorganised as I am, I haven't got a list of everybody's names and the group they represent, so I asked them to introduce themselves as well as part of their 3-minute introduction. And I think that's all from me, because you don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from these guys, and I'm going to start exactly where I thought, in the middle with Mark, and we'll go from there.
Right. Thanks very much. Great to see you all. My name is Mark Hornshaw from the Libertarian Party. I'm excited about community. Community is peaceful and voluntary interaction between all of us. It's not the council. The council isn't the community. It's just something that we've delegated certain tasks to: fixing the roads, the potholes, the footpaths, the water, taking up the rubbish, certain functions which are actually, for a lot of people, quite boring, but we want them to do those things diligently and well. The trouble is the people that sort of are attracted to work for council, and sometimes even run for council, are not people attracted to doing boring jobs. They want to change the world. They want to change the temperature of the planet. Or they want to teach kids about gender, or they want to bring about national reconciliation by telling us how to vote in a national referendum. You can do all of those things if you want to, but they're not the council's business. The council just needs to concentrate on its core functions. So the Libertarian Party is running across the state on a policy platform. It's not just vote for me. I'm an economist, I'm a university lecturer, I've had lots of board experience. I'm not asking you to vote for me because of who I am. We're running on a policy platform across the state. Get the woke out of council, say no to smart cities, cut costs and slash rates, promote property rights, and support council demergers. Those policies we're taking right across the state. I'm the state and federal policy director for our party, so I've helped to write those policies. So you can ask me more about those later. But if you support the climate cult, you probably aren't going to vote for me. But if you support the climate cult, you can't also be an environmentalist, because the climate cult wants to interrupt whale migration lanes with horrible windmills. They want to tear up farmland and forest to make horrible polluting windmills are pollution, as are solar farms. Carbon dioxide is not pollution. It's just a natural part of the atmosphere that plants breathe. And so, but the people that support the climate cult, they want to ban anything that brings joy. It's a bit like the COVID mania cult. Anything that brings you joy, we can't have you owning a pet, we can't have a barbecue, we're going to ban that. We're going to ban you from driving, we're going to ban you from having gas stoves, and we're against that. We want that. You can do those things if you want to. You can also support the rainbow agenda if you want to. We've got no problem with that. But we just don't want it to be pushed through council with other people's money. So go ahead, we're libertarians. We believe you can do whatever you want on your own property. We don't want people interfering with other people's property rights, though. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I just want to quickly clarify, not only is it an introduction, but we're talking about our group policy. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Lipovac. I'm running an independent group ticket, but I will, to keep it all transparent, I will let you know that myself and Ellen, 2 members of our 4-member team, are in fact Liberal members. However, we are not endorsed by the local Liberal Party, and we are not receiving any funding whatsoever. So I just want to let you know it's an independent ticket featuring 2 Liberals and 2 independents, and therefore we're running on that basis. Some of you may know me. I have, I guess, had different pseudonyms over the years in terms of my work in the media. So you may know me from working at 2MCFM many years ago with the old Strawny, not the new one, or the young one. So I was referred to as Nico, the promotions dude, Nick James when I was on air. Moving to another radio station became Super Radio Nico. But none of those names you will see on the ballot paper, as you can imagine. The Electoral Commission said, mate, you've got to put your full name down as it is on your birth certificate. So it is, in fact, Nick James Lipovac is what you'll find. And we are Group D, by the way. I'll mention that as well very quickly. The team also consists of John Bailey, Ellen Creppers, and also Luke Garrell. So they're also in the room today. And they're behind me, which is good. So our policy relates to our commitment to maintaining and upgrading and providing more roads and footpaths, all the boring stuff, water, sewage and waste services, and of course, recreational and sporting facilities, standard stuff. However, we as a group, and also want to encourage those who are elected to focus on being forward-thinking and financially responsible while making progress in the region's backlog of infrastructure, housing and transport requirements. Now, at the start of this term, going back 2.5 years ago, we were told we were around about 7 years behind in our projects. We've made some good progress, but we're still only scratching the surface at this point. But most importantly, we want to be, and we have to be, moving forward, financially responsible. So currently our operating expenses are greater than our operating revenue. And there's only so many things you can reduce or cut back on. We can take out loans, and of course, as you are aware, councils rely heavily on state and federal government funding, but we still need to be responsible at this level, while also planning for the future. We need balance. And we are determined to increase the level of communication and transparency and accountability and integrity. It's what you expect and want and deserve. I have the greatest respect for the work of our council staff and your input. And I want to encourage you to have your say and not think, what's the point? Nobody's listening. Some of the councillors from this term have been listening and have been taking up your cause. And this should always form the basis of the decision-making process. There's no room for personal agendas, party politics, or preconceived ideas. So our policy is to achieve as much as possible as a team, not only as councillors, but in conjunction with staff, the team in the office and in the field, over the next 4 years to put us in a good position over the next decade and beyond. We are so far behind. We need to sit down, stop the mucking around in council chambers, stop the silly arguments and the divisiveness and the distrust and the dysfunction. We've got to get it together, a new team, new councillors, and we've got to move on to make sure the next decade and beyond is a positive future.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for this great opportunity. My name is Stuart Watson. I'm second on the ticket for the Hastings Port Macquarie Greens. Lauren Edwards will be here shortly. She was tied up with Amanda Conn, Senator Amanda Conn, who was the local government representative for the Greens at a pre-organised event, so she should be here shortly. Lauren's proud to announce her candidacy for Mayor, leading the Greens group ticket, and leading into the upcoming council election with high hopes for a well-balanced council that represents all members of our community. Lauren is joined by myself, Jane McIntyre from Lorne, and Les Mitchell, who is here behind me. Lauren's been a dedicated Port Macquarie Hastings councillor for the past 3 years. I myself am a renewable energy consultant and been in the community for 45 years and involved in a lot of community groups. I'm a passionate advocate for increasing active transport. Jane is a retired school teacher, a community worker, and publishes the local quarterly Inklings magazine. Les has a background as an ecologist and has an extensive knowledge in the natural landscapes of our region. As the Greens mayoral candidate, Lauren emphasises the need for a council that listens, acts and delivers for the whole community, so that all individuals, including people living with disabilities and those experiencing disadvantage and homelessness, are heard. The Greens believe that responsible government requires a commitment to our community and our environment, both natural and built. Anything less would be irresponsible to current and future generations. While some may view council's role as limited to roads, rates and rubbish, the Greens assert it should encompass much, much more. Council are responsible for community planning and community development, affordable housing, environmental conservation, active transport, roads and maintenance, water and sewerage, waste services, community facilities, and responding to the actual challenges of climate change. This is where the rubber hits the road. We live in one of the most pristine environments in New South Wales. We must preserve our natural resources and ensure our infrastructure supports sustainable growth and a quality of life for all residents. The Greens are committed to creating a council that truly represents all community members. We care about having a fair and balanced council for the Port Macquarie Hastings. We encourage our community to engage in this election process, as it is vital for residents to be invested in and who they are voting for to ensure a diverse and inclusive council. In the next term, Lauren aims to reinvigorate community engagement and partnerships, reinstate the climate emergency declaration, protect higher environmental land and koala corridors, increase the investment in active transport infrastructure, advocate for more affordable and emergency housing solutions, and finally, we urge you to vote no in the referendum to determine the number of councillors. We need to retain 9 councillors to truly represent the wider community and ensure democracy prevails. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight. My name is DJ Alpanui and I'm running as an independent candidate for council, as a councillor. I want to start off by saying I believe it's time for bold and inclusive leadership that represents every corner of our vibrant community. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. And addresses the real life challenges and concerns that we face every day. The council has been monopolised by a voting bloc situation over the last term, and motions that were made and passed were strongly influenced by political agendas, rather than relying on facts, expert opinion, and most importantly, community feedback. Feedback that mostly went unheard. As a truly independent councillor, you can see I don't have anyone behind me. I will engage with the community to be informed by experts and make decisions based on merit rather than predetermined agendas. I'm asking for voters to take 20 seconds in the polling booth and vote below the line. Do not repeat the past and create another scenario where implementing meaningful and unbiased change will be near impossible. Allow me to share a little bit about myself because you're all looking at me like, who is that? I moved to Port Macquarie just over 2 years ago from Sydney, where I lived since university some 20 years ago. I grew up in Margaret River in Western Australia, which has many similarities to this area, only the sun sets on the ocean. I'm married, I'm a dedicated father of 2, and these things have deeply informed my values and made me the person I am. My journey as a first-generation Australian with German, Māori, First Nation New Zealand's heritage has instilled in me a deep appreciation for the rich diversity that strengthens this community. Diversity in all its forms, including diversity of thought, is vital to our community's success. By embracing different perspectives, we can discover new and exciting ideas to address old and persistent challenges. We can't change the future by repeating the past, just as we can't rely on the same leadership and expect different results. My professional life is dedicated to advocating for the most vulnerable among us. Through my work with an Indigenous children's charity, I've seen firsthand the importance of standing up for those who need it most. This experience fuels my commitment to making a meaningful difference in our community. I'm running for the Port Macquarie Hastings Council as a truly independent candidate to amplify the voices of all residents, especially those who have traditionally been silenced and ignored. Our community deserves a holistic approach in local government, better infrastructure, improved services, and enhanced quality of life and a financially sustainable future for our council. In a nutshell, that's why I'm here. I'd like to finish by saying, I am nervous. I'm not an expert in local government or speech giving. I'm not a career politician, but what I am is a proven and effective and passionate advocate. And I look forward to working with the experts employed at council whose job it is to know these things. Thank you all.
Firstly, I want to thank all of the candidates who bothered to turn up tonight and face up to you. It takes a lot of courage to stand here and look at all of these faces and not know exactly what's going to come, as we saw in the Laurelton United Servicemen's Club meet the candidate that occurred. So well done to everyone in the first instance, and well done to you coming and being a part of this. So my name's Rachel Shepherd. I'm leading Team Shepherd for council, running for councillors only, not for mayor. I'm joined by Lisa Interman, Kingsley Searle and Linda Elborn, who have a wealth of experience. Please do learn a little bit more about us as well. So myself, I'm an experienced councillor at the moment. Also, I'm 38 years old, mother of a 6-year-old daughter. My husband used to be a pilot in the Navy, is currently now a teacher working in the public system down at North Haven. My background's as a psychologist, and I found myself quite unusually engaged with council in a variety of different ways, and began to be invited to opportunities at council to engage on difficult issues, most notably the COVID Community Leaders Working Group, and looking at how we could help our community recover at all levels from the impacts of COVID, including infrastructure delivery, economic development, as well as community development. Sorry. In this last term of council, what we've seen is a pattern of block voting driven by Team Pinson, that had Team Pinson councillors, and with the casting vote of Team Pinson, that has had a significant impact on council's finances, on our relationships with the community, and as a result on council's capacity to be able to deliver into the future. So our view is that as we look to the future, what we need to see is a change. We need to be retaining a focus on the future readiness. We can't be distracted by pet projects or minor election promises. We need to be keeping on the eyes on the absolute basics: water security, sewer, stormwater, that's the 3 waters, roads. We all know that traffic congestion is one of the #1 issues for our community. Sustainable development, looking at how we make sure that our financial management is sound, and that it all comes under that banner of future readiness. The other elements that we need to, the other elements that we need to be tracking in order to be able to deliver on the core business of council is a return to teamwork within the councillor body, an ability for people to have different views and still talk about those different views. In fact, it shouldn't be just talking about them, it should be actively drawing on those different views to be able to make a better decision that one person couldn't have made alone. It also needs to be teamwork with our MPs through positive and productive working relationships with our MPs. It needs to be positive and productive working relationships with our community, whether that's through focused reference groups or whether it's through informal opportunities as they arise. The last thing that we're most focused on is genuine action towards accountability. Governance plays a big role in that, and governance isn't a sexy word, but what that comes down to is how council makes decisions, what systems are in place to make sure those decisions don't lend themselves to corruption or cronyism, but instead having accountability, real actions towards accountability that allows you to know what's going on at council and take real action between elections to hold your councillors accountable to delivering for you.
Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Hamish Tubman, and I'm running for Labor in Port Macquarie. I've grown up in the community, and my family's from Rollins Plains and the North Shore, so and I'm now living in Port Macquarie. So I'm running. I've seen firsthand the challenges of our community faces. I work with various sectors from aged care to farming, and I'm passionate about the future of our region. As the community grows, housing has become unaffordable for many, and I've seen many young people trapped out of the market. But with the recent establishment of the university, there's an opportunity to bring and keep younger people here. This is why I'm running for local council, to ensure the community has a strong future and opportunities and affordable housing. So after speaking with lots of people at the markets, I've noticed that road maintenance has been by far the biggest issue. So our roads are crucial for safety and efficiency, and I would prioritise it and escalate our maintenance programs. This includes engaging with the state to address major traffic issues like those on the Oxley Highway and Port Hospital. We'll hope CBD and the North Ramp to the donut. So I've also noticed that living here throughout the floods and fires in 2021 and 2019, and I propose a comprehensive review of the climate change response policy by using local experts. This proactive approach will protect our homes, businesses and loved ones from natural disasters like we saw in those years. Development and infrastructure. So as we grow our community, the infrastructure needs to keep pace. We need a strategic review to ensure we're meeting crucial and future needs while also being mindful of our financial challenges. The 2024-25 budget projects a deficit of approximately $8 million. And so that's something that's going to be concerning going forward if we manage to make it into council. So going on to affordable housing. Affordable housing is a growing crisis, and I propose that we look at diverse housing options. So that's more options for like granny flats, tiny homes, and how we can fit that into our community to meet those needs. The council just recently spoke about a homeless shelter, where the information centre is. So we're continuing efforts like that will actually help those issues. So, and then finally, council integrity. So many of the community have been concerned about integrity in local government. I propose that councillors are transparent with what they're trying to achieve and declare all their interests, and ongoing, transparency with their interests. Okay, thank you. In conclusion, give a young fellow a chance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of our candidates. And I did neglect to thank the Hastings Ratepayers Association for organising this evening. So perhaps before we get into the questions, just give them a round of applause because everything that they're doing. Now, with the questions, I didn't read out any guidelines for asking your questions, but what I would ask you to do is ask a question, not deliver a monologue or describe to us your personal situation. What we're looking for is questions that our candidates here can answer, and not a long-winded statement about your current situation. Now, Greg has, I think, 4 or 5 questions. He's going to go to the people with the questions, get them to ask the question, and then I will just start off somewhere randomly within this lovely team out the front, and we'll go from there. Over to you, Greg.
Thanks, Rob. Our first question tonight comes from Kay Berman. Where are you, Kay?
I would like each lead candidate to explain how they will ensure that the Port Macquarie Hastings area has climate resilience and water security.
We might do is start right here.
Action on climate change is at the core of the Greens policies. Water resilience with the Kawarra Dam and the planning for climate change is absolutely essential, and we are instrumental with the Sustainability Working Group before it was decommissioned by the Pinson Group in guidelines for acting on climate change and policies to give us security into the future. Only last week, the Insurance Council raised the insurance profile for the low-lying areas in Port Macquarie by 3 times. So insurance policies have tripled on the North Shore. We really need to have at the core business of council action on climate change. So our climate policy, our sustainability policies were all driven through the Sustainability Working Group, which had 3 Greens members. So the policies that we have are clear and concise on our website. It's at core, it's the heart of the Greens policies. Thank you.
Yes, I've got it, thank you. I have to admit, I'm not an expert on climate change. However, I do believe it is real. I don't think it's a cult. You can look outside your window. Things aren't where they used to be. Lakes and rivers are changing. The oceans are rising. Erosion is, it's all very evident. There's science that backs it all up. It's not crystals in the moon. I think one of my primary policies is on creating more livable communities, and that definitely incorporates an element of climate change and climate change awareness. I do think it's important for Port Macquarie to grow and expand, and definitely I think we need a strategy of growth that supports both our environment and our economy without risking our council's future. In terms of your specific questions about water, I would love to get your name and your email address and come back to you with a proper answer.
Thought I'd sneak around the back just to trick everybody.
Thank you. So the first thing I want to do is provide some reassurance that back in the 1980s, actually, that council planners were at that time already incorporating climate change projections into our water security planning. So we're actually in a better position than many as a result of that. In the 2018 through to 2020 drought that we had, part of what that initiated within council was a review of what our dry year looked like, and therefore a review of what our planning for supplying during a dry year looks like. And that fundamentally changed council's water security planning for the future as well. So hopefully some reassurance. However, during this term of council, we have seen a whole array of climate-related measures stepped back, and policy measures completely thrown out or taken out of our planning under the impetus of Team Pinson voting. And so my commitment would be to ensuring that council is going to continue to consider the scientifically based climate change projections and forecasts based on scientific advice in our water security planning and implementation into the future.
Yeah, so there's a few things already happening with this, and it can be done. So the state government actually has proposed that the Macquarie Dam is going to be upgraded, the filtering systems and new water connections into town. Other areas as well is to reinstate the climate response plan. Review. That's up for renewal, so it will be up for the next council to be in there and making decisions that will affect that plan. Also, there's opportunities in community batteries for making the benefits solar more beneficial. So, we're getting low feed-in tariffs, so opportunities there to actually help the community save money on their power and take full advantage of solar. So there's opportunities there. And I've also heard that there's issues with the sewage being released at Dunbogan that's causing issues with the quality of the beach at Lighthouse Beach there as well, affecting the animal life there. So there's issues there that we could look into. And also, of course, tree and fire maintenance. So making sure that the forests are clean and tidy. Yeah, thank you.
If I could be so bold as to offer a reading list, read Fossil Future by Alex Epstein. And don't listen to people that said that Warragamba Dam will never fill up again 20 years ago. And the climate has always been a threat throughout all of human history to people when they're poor, when they're energy poor especially. When people have abundant low-cost energy, they can deal with anything that the climate throws at them. So in order to be resilient against whatever happens with the climate, we need abundant low-cost energy that comes from fossil fuels. And the climate is no threat whatsoever to human flourishing. Human flourishing ought to be the priority, but it's not for people in the climate cult. They want to make everything more expensive. They want to make it hard, especially for the poor, to even be able to live, let alone deal with the climate. We want to make it easier for people to deal with the climate by having low-cost energy and by getting rid of all climate change policies off council.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the great answers from both Rachel and Stuart in relation to this particular question. Great question about climate resilience and water security. Thank you very much. And again, I don't claim to be an expert in all things, but that's where we rely on people who have knowledge and have the expertise to rely on them to guide you in the right way. One of the first things we need to do as a council, whether you believe it or not, whether you believe in climate change or not, is reinstate the climate change policy, because there are buckets of money that we can then dip into or apply for, which will allow us then to put projects in place. At the moment, well, over the last couple of years, we haven't had the chance to do anything in that respect. And a climate change policy isn't something radical or dramatic. Every other council has one. Every other council has one. And again, if the words climate change may have been sullied over the years, but we all believe, I won't say we all believe, no doubt you have noticed the extreme weather conditions in recent years or over the past decade that we've experienced. More extreme weather conditions and more often right around the world. So you can't sit there and say nothing's happening with the environment or the climate in that respect. So please, you need to open up your eyes, have a look around, listen to what people have to say, follow their expertise, and then you have the opportunity to do something about this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of our candidates, and I believe Greg will have another question from the floor.
Yes, the next question is from Anne Pincott. Now, Anne has really a two-part question, so if you just ask the question as a whole, and the candidates will enter from there.
I'm wondering what is behind trying to reduce the councillors from 9 down to 7, and the reason for that, and also why we have a council here, the councillors represent the whole area as a whole rather than individual wards or areas like that, which has been a case in other councils that I've lived. Thank you.
If everyone didn't hear that, it's a two-part question, which is basically asking if you agree with the reduction of council numbers from 9 to 7, and also if you would support having wards.
Can we answer those two separately, Greg?
You may.
They're very different.
Well,
and time-wise, it's not going to be enough time to answer them both, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we'll let you run over a minute.
I think we can stretch it out a little bit so they can do the questions. What if we look at, say, something along the lines of a minute and a half? And if they get to 2 minutes, I'll come and steal the microphone off them.
Sounds good.
If you don't mind, I'll hand this over to one of my team members, Kingsley Sell.
She's doing that for a good reason. It's one of the reasons I decided, after saying no, I would never do this again. I put my head up, and it's super important to me. So let's do it quickly. We've got a minute, a little analysis. What's the benefit? So what's the benefit to you in reducing it to 6 councillors and 1 mayor? Okay. Yeah, seven councillors. It's $60,000. Okay, that's what you save. What do you give up for that? Okay. Democracy, yeah, great. Okay, but what you're risking is what we've just seen. So I'm in Sydney. I'm a vested interest group. I need to get my development application through here. So I form a party. I have 6 people, call them independents. You can't check that. You go through, all of a sudden, Port Macquarie is run from the big smoke. That's what you really, really are risking here. It's your input into council, okay? And I will take, my opinion is very much council is the community. I come from the Progress Association, which is sort of the bottom level up to this level. That's why I'm stepping up to this. It's your input. It's your council. Don't give it away for a fistful of dollars, okay? You've got nothing to lose by voting no. You're going to be no worse off. But you risk everything from corruption right through. and I have got a bit of time. It's a 400-page document. On the bottom of that document is we're going to change the flood heights to 400 mil from 900 mil. So I can go and build a hospital in a floodplain. That's fact. It happened here. A 4-hour meeting I was in was your community representatives that picked that up. By having councillors who are swamped, 100,000 people very soon, and you got 7 people representing you? For heaven's sake, people, wake up. Thank you.
I'd like to pass on to Rachel. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rich Miller. I've been in Port Macquarie for 9 years now. Love the place. You won't blast me out of here. This question about representation is very important. The thing is, your councillors, the councillors represent you. And that is the way government works in this country. It works at all levels in this country that way. If you have less representation, you lose. Okay, you'd say, the adherents of saying we can save some money because it's a smaller council, but it's a false economy. So I'll be obliged to, with the previous speaker who said it was $80,000. I think that's about right. That was the number I came up with as well. So we should respect our democracy, we should respect our councillors, and in fact, the other thing that I think it links to this is councillor responsibilities to their council. And this is what I think governance is also about. It's a social contract, a small one, but this is what needs to happen. And if councillors work better together, we all win. Yeah. And I think that's all I need to say. Yeah.
I'll just answer the second part of the question first, if that's all right. When you have wards, the idealised version of it, what you might think, is you have one person represent Comboyne and one person represent Thrumster and one person represent Port Macquarie and someone represent Warhope and that sort of thing. That's not how it works though. In practice, when you have wards and you end up with, say, only 2 or 3 people elected from each ward, it's even worse than the situation that we're describing here, going from 9 to 7. You go from 9 to 3, you just really get carbon copies of the same person. And it's dominated by Labor and Liberal. That's what happens in councils that have wards. Only Labor and Liberal, only the major parties get in. And minor parties, look, I'm here from the Libertarian Party. We're not for everybody. We're not everybody's cup of tea. So it's in my interest for there to be a bigger council. I'll admit that. I'd rather there be 9 than 7. It gives me more of a chance to get in. When you go to wards, you get no diversity at all. You just get Labor and Liberal or Nationals and Labor, sometimes the Greens. We support council demergers. So what I would prefer is go back to having a separate council altogether for Warhope and the Camden Haven to Port Macquarie. Let them have their own council. Bigger councils means bigger bureaucracies, but it doesn't mean more representation. It means council is more aloof, more distant, harder to get in contact with. They're not interested in you. So we'd rather 2 councils rather than 1 council with several wards.
So if I can answer the second question first. So as you know, there's no ward system at present, but we all try and do as much as we can across the region, although some do more than others. I am happy to be corrected. I understand a referendum would be required to install or remove a ward system for local councils. So this would have to be considered at the 2028 election. There's 128 councils in New South Wales, 48 use the ward system. Thinking outside of the box, I propose that perhaps the new council sits down and discusses the possibility of a de facto ward system, that we select a councillor to be the spokesperson for an area, so that Dunbogan to Lakewood has a rep who they can contact, Kew Kendall has a rep, Warhope's Hinterland region up to Comboyne has somebody, one for North Shore and Telegraph Point, Lake Carrai, Bonny Hills and so on. That particular councillor, the mayor and a couple of staff can meet on a regular basis to discuss issues and concerns. This might be the way to ensure that all residents not only have a say, but are also heard on what their specific area needs. Because as we know, from suburb to suburb, town to town, there are different issues. Answering the first question second, as you know, councillors who voted against the reduction in the number of community representatives were myself, Councillors Shepherd, Edwards and Interman. There was no community feedback whatsoever on putting this change forward. Instead, those Other 4 councillors thought they knew best. The population is growing. We don't need less people representing more people. And increased workload means councillors will be less productive. With 9 councillors, we'll have more people of different backgrounds who move around in different networks, that live in different areas of the Hastings, who have diverse opinions to consider each item that we vote on, all the pros and cons of every decision independently. So summing up, more people means a better democratic process. Just about every council in our local region has 9 councillors. Mid-Coast has 11, but they go from Foster to Gloucester and down to Hawk's Nest. Bellingen has 7 with a population of 13,000. We have 90,000. Imagine having 7 councillors looking after 90,000 people and growing. So I too say place a cross in the no box on that referendum question. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you very much, Lauren Edwards. Apologies for my lateness. I hope there was an apology for me. I was at an event that was pre-booked some weeks ago. 2-part question, referendum and ward system. I'll start with the second question first as well. I like some of the comments I've heard about the possibility of representation when a councillor might be given a sort of portfolio or responsibility for a certain area. But this would only work when there is a collegial atmosphere, and then when councillors could come back with that and really help the other councillors be up to speed with those feedbacks and needs of the various towns and villages throughout the community. Generally speaking, though, the ward system, I'm sceptical of it. I do think that there is a potential for too much pitting towns and villages against each other. I think there's already a bit too much competition, to be honest, through having to apply for grants and compete with each other for that limited resource to do the things they want to do in their areas. So I'd have to be convinced on the ward system at this point. I'm a bit sceptical of whether that would work so well, certainly here in this area. The referendum, I think the question was going to why we would, could I have that question just repeated? Why we would actually want to reduce councillor numbers was the question, which I think is probably best to ask the folks that proposed it. But if you're keen to know that, I would direct you to go to the September 2023 council meeting. That's all recorded and saved online, so you can watch that back from 48 minutes, and you can see some of the arguments and reasons that were put forward. Some of those arguments were that it would make it easier to be clear about which groups in government, that they have their views, their mandate, their promises to get on with. It would also reduce special interest groups, which might be Libertarian sort of party, I guess. And so these are the sorts of things you can go and watch for yourself, the arguments that were put forward for why we're asking the community this question. But I think an important point was raised that the community weren't actually asked if they wanted to be asked this question, which cost money. And so right now we've just pretty much spent the money that might have been saved for the first year of having 2 less councillors.
Thank you very much, Lauren. And I must apologise because you weren't here earlier. You may be a little bit confused about the bell. So I'll explain it. There's a green light, an amber light, a red light. When the red light comes on, there is a bell. And then once you hear the bell, try and wrap up within 15 seconds so that we can move things along. And very unfair of me not to explain that when you first arrived. Now, I don't think DJ's had an opportunity to answer this question, so over to DJ for the last candidate answering this question.
Thank you. I'll be pretty quick. Lauren, if you want some of my time, you're welcome to it. I just want to say, in terms of less councillors, or I don't know why, you'd have to ask the current council and the people who voted for that. But our community strength lies in diversity. Less representation equals less diversity. That's all I have to say on that. In terms of wards, again, not an expert, but I did live in a council previously that had the ward system, and it was painted one colour every year for about 3 decades. So think about that, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I agree with Mark. It is a question of diversity and inclusion. You can't get that from just looking at 3 parties. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Rob Snow. Rob? Where's Rob?
Well, I think my first two questions have sort of been asked, so I'll try something else. And do you support a rate freeze at a time when the current budget isn't keeping up? Bearing in mind that any cuts now will have a drip feed of shortages later, and the proverbial SHRT will hit the fan eventually, and then we'll have huge increases.
Did everyone hear that?
Am I on? Yes, I am. So the question is basically, do you support a rate freeze? And I haven't started yet with Nick, I don't think, so I'll give Nick the mic first up.
Thank you very much. This will be short and sweet. No, thank you very much. No, hang on. Naturally, we've gone through 2 of the past 3 financial years with a rate freeze implemented. And we know the fact that less money coming in means there's going to be a reduction in services and programs from council. And we know people are doing it tough. The first rate freeze was to avoid a 1.7% amount. The second one we got through at 4.7, and the current one that we're not taking up is the 4.6%. I'm all in favour of the recommended rate peg that comes through each financial year for us to consider. Not in favour of a special rate variation. We've seen that in other towns and councils, and ludicrous amounts. We're talking 10%, 20%, 30% increases on your rates, which is extraordinary. But that's poor financial management leading up to that. And now we're at a situation where we're being not financially responsible with these rate freezes that we currently have. And therefore, who knows what the recommended rate peg will be next year to try and make up for what we've lost so far. You may have heard numerous times, we lose $2.7 million this financial year, and over a 10-year period, it equates to about $30 million. So the answer, no.
Just before I hand to Lauren, DJ does give his apologies. He had a previous engagement, so he's had to duck out, unfortunately. But we'll move right along with answering these questions with Lauren, the next person to answer.
Thank you very much. No, I don't support the rate freeze or a rate freeze in the future, because what it's turned out to be is the rate peg not being taken up, and that's very different to a special rate variation that goes over and above. The rate peg is set every year to help councils just keep pace with basically inflation. We all know things go up. CPI, we have a review of pensions. We have this need to make sure that when expenses are going up, that council can keep delivering and just cover those basics. When award wages go up, the rate peg helps us cover those sorts of things. So no, I don't support what has now been clear a rate freeze could mean is not even taking up a rate peg. I think that was the simple part of the question, wasn't it? Yeah. No, look, I do support council looking at other options, other ways to also generate income. You know, that's something I'd like to see in the new term of council. I did suggest at the last meeting, perhaps, you know, we could have a revenue task force of sorts. Anyway, thank you.
Me sneaking around the back again.
So the first thing I want to say is that council needs to be financially sustainable in order for us to continue delivering on the core business in the long term. So if you do have the chance to look at our most recent council agenda, there's a detailed report, and our long-term financial plan, which paints a very bleak picture about the longer term financial position, and gives some direction as to some of the actions we need to take to address that. The rate freeze is undertaken in this term under the direction of Team Vinson has put us almost $50 million in a worse position over the next 10 years in lost rate revenue. And most notably this term, you don't have to be a financial expert to know these things. This council was given advice from the Office of Local Government, the Deputy Secretary was given advice from specialists, independent specialists that we paid to give us advice, from the staff that we pay to give us advice. They did a detailed risk assessment and advised us of the impacts of a rate freeze, and most notably, we went out with information to our community about the impacts of a rate freeze, and the feedback we got from our community was to not adopt a rate freeze. So I think that's a powerful enough statement there. You don't have to be an expert to understand we need to listen to different sources of information in our decision making.
Yeah, in preparation of that question, I actually printed off a few documents here, so feel free to come up and see them about the issue with the rates freeze. Yeah, so we have got messaging from the actual Deputy of Office of Local Government stating the issue of keeping the rates the same. So despite my age, I am a ratepayer as well, and the rate freeze was projected to be $60 roughly per ratepayer throughout the community, and it's put us into a situation. And I'll just give you a few charts on this that I actually printed out. This is a projection of our general fund operating performance ratio. It is red for the next decade because of decisions like this. They're in place to keep with inflation. And I know paying rates sucks, you know, as a ratepayer myself, but we're looking at cutting fundamental things. If we keep going ahead like this, you've got resealing road maintenance, parks and gardens maintenance, and tree and shrub maintenance. So I've got the documents up here if you want to have a look about what's in.
No, I don't support a rate freeze, as you might have guessed. We support rate cuts and spending cuts. And I hate terms like revenue and the council's budget and things like that. I like to call it theft and extortion. And I like to think of the community, not the council as in we've got our costs, no, we'll cut costs. Because you know what? Members of the community have to cut costs when real wages are thrown back to 2011 levels. People have to cut out kids' after school activities. People have to not eat out. People have to even struggle finding what they can afford to put in their shopping trolley. People are doing it tough. And you think about, oh no, but we, the council, need this money to do these particular things. Well, find ways to cut costs and keep that money in the community rather than extorting even more.
Our next question is from Ken Bartle. Ken, where are you?
Thank you for this opportunity. I lived in Port Macquarie 50 years ago, went to Western Australia for 38 years, and I'm retired back here now. I'm also the author and publisher of 4 books concerning natural law. And during my intensive research over the last 12 years, I've become very concerned about what people are being misled about. Now, each of the candidates tonight has spoken about accountability. So my question is in relation to this so-called smart city idea. I'd like to hear what the candidates have to say about their position concerning smart cities and in particular surveillance of the population, because that to me is not accountability. Thank you.
Start with you, Hamish, this time.
Okay, our smart cities. So from what I understand about this issue is that it's about the surveillance from government buildings. But I don't know if this is actually a genuine issue that people are concerned about. Like it of course, this isn't China. We're not surveilling people and tracking where people are. This is for this, security of council buildings, like, people trying to rob the place or something like that. It's not being used to track people where they are and what they're doing. I don't believe this issue is as big as what it's made out to seem, and I think that furthering in on this, we're just running into territory of conspiracy by the government, and I don't think that's a healthy way to be running the perspective of council from. So that's my perspective on that. believe that that issue is overblown, and in many ways it's actually used to help crime. You know, in rare cases, police might come and ask for footage if there's a break-in, and that's been my experience working in the community. Thank you.
The people who support this always act dumb like that. They always do. Smart cities, until it actually happens, until you're locked in your 15-minute zone, and then whoops. So this is already happening in England, and there are already plans afoot here in our coastal towns, more so in Coffs Harbour than here. And so you'll be given reward points. It's all part of the climate change agenda. You'll be given Qantas points or Woolworths points. Boo to you for staying in your 15-minute zone and therefore not driving and therefore saving the planet. And then it'll be, no, you can apply for a permit to leave, and we'll give you 4 free permits a year. And they're only $1 each if you want to move out of your 15-minute zone. But then there'll be a global boiling emergency, and it'll shoot up to $1,000. And so we'll have the COVID lockdowns will turn into climate lockdowns. Once everybody's got the QR code and everybody's got the app on their phone, it'll start out fun with all these points and gimmicks and games. But then once you've downloaded it and you're locked in it, sorry, but we've got to do this for the sake of the planet.
Just I'd like to remind everybody about respect, and that goes two ways. It goes for the candidates. I think, Mark, you overstepped the mark there by using the word of dumb, and I'm just calling you out on that. And the interjections from the floor, yes, you disagree, but we're here to listen to everybody's views, all the candidates' views. You can then make your decision come voting day as to how you want to express it, rather than be a little bit rude and start interjecting. So both sides just need to remember we're here to get the facts, listen to different ideas and opinions, and respect each other's ideas and opinions. If we disagree with them, don't vote for them. If we agree with them, vote for them. And I don't care. I'm going to vote for the council in Tamworth because I'm still registered over there.
Thank you, well said. Just briefly, in my 2.5-year stint as a current councillor, at no stage has smart cities ever popped up on the agenda. Never have we had a briefing. Never has there been any discussion in the hallways of council. I have had community members mention that or send me an email about it. Seeing as it's not something that council is considering, I have no comment because of the fact it's not an issue that's currently before us. Thank you.
That would be my turn. I have heard the term smart city. It's made me curious. I've looked it up. I do believe that it is a metropolitan kind of plan that is, in my view, from what I've read, about simply making things accessible to people within a radius, so they have the services and the things that they need. I don't believe that it obligates them to stay within any kind of boundary from what I've read, and that would be ridiculous. Port Macquarie Hastings Council, in the not this term that we've just finished, in the term before, actually adopted a smart community roadmap. It's not a smart city, but it does have some things like free public Wi-Fi, smart street lighting, using technology to save us money, digital engagement. I don't see the threat. I've not had any feedback from the community that they're unhappy with that roadmap. So I don't know why the smart city has come up as a question. I don't believe there's a plan for that here. But from what I understand, it's about getting transport within a radius of people so they can choose to not use the car, but they can still use the car if they like.
Thank you. I think the views of current councillors Edwards and Lipperback broadly reflect mine there. But what I would just want to comment on is I can't tell you how many times during this term of council, sitting in chambers and a debate going on, how many times I would have loved to have heard the views of a couple of people who I knew were ultimately probably going to vote no on something or vote differently to me. And we'd get to the end of the debate, the vote would happen, and I still had no idea why those people voted a particular way because they didn't say anything. So while there might be views here that we strongly disagree with that have been presented, looking at you, Mark, sorry. I can't tell you how valuable it is to actually have them said, knowing full well they're not going to be received well by everyone. And I would personally find it much easier to work with someone who's going to stick to a set of values and policies. I certainly don't agree with them, but I respect the willingness and ability to stay to a set of values and policies rather than be simply seeking populist votes. And there is something to be said for that.
Well, good news, everybody. We now have a little bit of time left where we can look for questions from the floor. But before we do that, I might just remind you of what I said right at the beginning, and that is that we're looking for questions, not monologues about your current situation. So does anyone have a question? Because here we go over here, Greg. Yeah. We'll come back to you next. There should be time.
Hello, my name's Dale. I'm interested in your opinions about active transport, whether there are any benefits to the community, to residents in this area for active transport, and if so, how councils might facilitate those benefits.
Okay, active transport. Is there anyone here who hasn't started? Nick, you've started off? I might go back to Lauren, seeing as she was unfortunate enough to be held up at a meeting, and we'll start with Lauren.
Thank you. I'm going to be real quick and then hand over to Stuart, who's our expert on active transport. But I will just say I was disappointed that in the last year of council, with active transport grants available, no applications were made, and I think that needs to change.
Yeah, this is a great topic. Lauren put me onto the Ausroads infrastructure policy and changes webinars. We did 3 of them just recently to instruct council. Active transport's about more things than just cycling. It's about free buses, more public transport, ride share, card share platforms, e-bikes, walking, mobility scooters, and there's health benefits and wealth benefits for the community. The big thing that came out of the Ausroads infrastructure webinars was that the 5-kilometre trips are really the low-hanging fruit. Okay, so if we can encourage people to do active transport, be it bikes, cars, e-bikes, mobility scooters, that's that 5-kilometre trip that's the low-hanging fruit. There's other things we've investigated is smaller buses, free buses, ride and park to cut congestion. It's not easy, but the benefits of active transport with local government far, far outweigh the costs. Thank you.
I feel as though I'm walking across here all the time. I must have planned it incorrectly.
I'll come to you then. So at the moment, a lot of people in our community are restricted from being able to do the type of transport they would like to do. They'd like to be able to safely ride from Cat-Eye to Port, or from Warhope to Port, or in various different places. And so council's been receiving that feedback for years. And most recently, at last council meeting, in fact, an integrated transport plan was adopted, which laid out the major actions, infrastructure, public transport, active transport as well, actions required over the next 10 years in order to be able to deliver, address traffic congestion and deliver a safe and well-moving transport system into the future. So that's well worth looking at. It's an integrated transport plan. We're talking about major actions, not the absolutely on the ground stuff. But if there's key links missing there, you should get in contact with council and let us know that. But it addresses a whole range of issues.
Yeah, so regarding active transport, so the 2 people that are in my group behind me, Lorna and Reg, they actively use public bus service. So that's providing benefit to the community. And I've also heard cases at Warhope and in Laurelton where the bus services aren't as active as they are in Port Macquarie, so there may be rooms there for improvement. And I've also engaged with the local university that have also mentioned that having bike lanes and that into the university, or even wider footpaths for mixed usage would create a lot of benefit for the students there to be, that may not have a car, that come from out of town. There's lots of opportunities there for transport in Port Macquarie that's going to benefit people's lives in the community. If I end up getting in council, I'll be speaking with professionals and understanding more about that issue. Yeah, so thank you.
I think if you want to buy an electric bike or scooter, just go and buy one. They're already for sale. There's plenty of them. If you want to walk, just go and walk. There's no law against it. If you want to catch a bus, catch a bus. If there's not enough, start a bus company. Catch an Uber. If there's not enough Ubers, be an Uber driver yourself. You can already do all of those things. Calling it active transport, I smell a rat. This is about banning cars. This is about saying, oh no, now you've got your bike lane, we're going to ban you from driving. Well, not ban it, we'll just make it so that only the richest people can afford to drive, because petrol and registration costs and things will be so expensive. So I support like recreation where, like, I think having a path from North Haven round to Pilot Beach at Dunbogan is a brilliant idea, because that's where people actually want to walk. And so places like that, but it's not transport. It's not because they live in North Haven and they work at Pilot Beach. When people are actually seeking transport, they want to bring their shopping, or they want to carry their kids, or they actually got stuff, and walking and riding just isn't necessarily suitable for your day-to-day commute or your transport. So recreation and transport are two different things. Walking is great for the former, not great for the latter.
So I'm pretty sure in 2021 in the election campaign, we were discussing this very issue once again about the best methods of transport, particularly get in and out of Port Macquarie. And as you can imagine, there were considerations put forward about park and ride stations, as we've heard, whether we have everyone coming in from Moorhope, park at Sovereign Hills, or people around town go to Westport, or you can stop at Lake Hadai, and then buses are provided to then get people into town, which would free up a bit of traffic around the roundabouts if it's mainly bus traffic. We also allow more room and access for people who wanting to ride bikes in and out of town as well, which is all beneficial. More people on buses means potentially cheaper tickets as well. So if we're getting involved, if we're really going to pursue this and get involved with the local bus company, then we need to start looking at this. This is a forward-thinking type of scenario that we obviously need to consider as part of getting in and around. While we don't know what's happening with the two wonderful roundabouts that we have during the peak hour, this is an option down the track that we have park and ride areas. We have buses available to pick up the people, to get them in and out of town. Less traffic means also less likelihood of injuries to pedestrians who are there. And again, encouraging people to get healthy and jumping on a bike. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll have our next question.
We have a young lady here.
Thanks, Greg. Jeanette Rainbow from Moorhope. I have two questions for the prospective candidates. The first one is, I am very concerned about our water situation, because what I can see, I've been here for only 60 years, and I know that the place is just getting so developed, and I'm wondering where the water's going to come. It's something we all need, and whether you would consider, I have a property up on the Papenbarra River, and what I see is the most beautiful, pristine water floating down past, comes into the Hastings River at Koori Island, joins the salt water and straight out to sea at Port Macquarie. Now, I see that as a valuable resource that is totally being wasted. And not only the Papenbarra, but there's various other rivers that run into the Hastings that could be either weired or stored off river. I prefer weiring the river so that it continues to flow and keeps very healthy that way. And the other couple of things that I'd just like to mention, according to Council's own operational plan, the Council is currently running at about 667 staff, and it's costing $71 million just for employee costs. Now, that money is coming out of all of our rates that we contribute, which is $121 million according to your budget. So I'm just wondering, is 667 people really necessary to run this council and to look after us all? Because quite frankly, I don't see very much happening west of the highway. I don't see.
Thanks, Jeanette. That's two questions. We'll go on with those. We might do the same here. Thank you, Jeanette. We might do the same here and just say, put the red light up at 1.5 just in case, because you've got one question on water and weirs, etc., and one on the staffing of council. So we might start with Mark because we're starting to double up here. So we'll start in the middle and go from there.
Water, if it's needed, and if that works technically, then I have no problem with it. It is something where I would say we need to check with the experts. That phrase is overused, especially with COVID, where the experts were all bought off, and the real experts were censored. But in this case, I think water engineers don't usually suffer from such grandiose ideas, and so we'll defer to them. In terms of council staff, yeah, we need to keep the people who are actually in the high vis, mowing the parks and sporting fields and fixing the potholes and actually doing the work. If there are people in head office who are creating email signatures and a whole lot of diversity officers, and even a whole lot of people costing millions of dollars whose job is so-called community consultation, but sometimes what that means is council staff thinking that they're the councillors and can bypass councillors. Really, community consultation is you vote for the people who you think represent your ideas. And the people that actually face election are the ones that have to really consult with the community. And so council staff can just have an idea of their own, an agenda that they want to implement, and you can always massage it. When you don't face election, you can always find a way to say, oh yeah, the community likes that too, by doing a Facebook survey or whatever it is, or speaking to a particular interest group who already supports that particular agenda. And so I think there are many ways that head office staff could be cut.
Thank you, Jeanette. A couple of beauties there. Thank you very much. We have focused tonight a couple of times on water security. As we know, extremely important, particularly with a growing population. There's no doubt about that. But keep in mind, we haven't had any water restrictions in our local area for 20 years. And that also comes back to the fact that we've had extreme weather conditions leading to many floods. So in that respect, we're doing okay at this point in time. I like your idea of weirs. I don't think it's been mentioned or brought up before. That's certainly a possibility. And while we're having plentiful amounts of rain, why not divert that into tanks or into another dam, whatever the case may be, for future readiness? Absolutely, that's great. So in that respect, great question. And I know it's up at Papenbarrow, your rivers do flood very quickly as well when we get some heavy rainfall going down that mountain. Staff numbers, all right, fantastic. I don't believe in this day and age, people are being employed to just sit around and do nothing and pick up a paycheck. Certainly there's no jobs for the boys. I'm sure everyone, and I don't know exactly what everyone does in the office. I see the boys on the road doing their jobs, which is fantastic. But I'm sure, and we've heard over the past 2.5 years this term that the CEO has gone in, along with the directors, and cut back numerous staff, even moved on staff members on, I guess, who've been a bit of experience and they've had a good wage. They've been replaced by other people. So again, that's been a reduction in the cost there as well. Great questions, and it's always brought up in terms of how many staff members we have and are they necessary. I say yes, they are at this point in time, but that's something we can go into the new term and ask for a bit of a review into that. Absolutely. So good couple of questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, you jammed a lot into that opportunity to ask a question. So the Kalwara Water Treatment Facility, I've supported that since day one. It was in my first budget submission. I know many other councillors have got their eye on this and they're concerned about water security for our community as well. So that's happening. That project, although we have to worry about will it be funded, how are we going to afford it if we keep going down a road of squeezing the belt so tight that we can't breathe. So water, another option with water, yes, I agree with Mark. Let's check with the experts. There's a water cycle. We have to actually understand and know what's going on there. But I would say you might have an opportunity for small-scale pumped hydro there, and maybe explore that as well. Staffing levels. Look, staff have KPIs to actually meet these days. As Councillor Lipovac said, I do think that largely the community sets their plan. They've given us the strategic plan. They tell us the projects and services they want, and then staff are there to deliver that. So at this point, I would say staff are working hard to deliver your vision. They have KPIs, they have to perform. So I don't support a reduction in staff levels at this point in time, no.
Can I just clarify, was the question about leading to reducing staff numbers or increasing them to be able to provide more services?
Decrease them and save the money.
Okay, understood. So going back to the water one, that's a big one. We've recently adopted the integrated water cycle management strategy, which goes all the way from it raining up in the mountains to all the way to it getting to the ocean and all the places it goes in our mouths and out other places to get between. So that's a more in-depth conversation maybe we could have separately as well. In relation to staff numbers, I think there's an argument that there could be places where there could be less staff, but the only way that that can come about is if we're demanualising or if we're digitising and doing some technological uplift. One of the big ways that council is falling behind, other sectors is the ability to take things out of a highly manualised, intensive process that could just be done like that. So if council were able to invest more in the ready-to-go initiatives that are currently unfunded and underfunded, then in fact we would be able to get more of the sorts of efficiencies it would mean that less staff would be required in those jobs and perhaps would be available to do some of the on-the-ground jobs that people prioritise as well and deliver other parts of the community plans and be working towards other parts of the community vision.
Yeah, so regarding the water issue, there's two projects happening by the state government, which is, the upgrades to the Quarry Dam, which is going to put in more pumping stations and well as filtration and new distribution lines into the town. There's also a new sewage treatment plant going out as well, which is going to help with grey water and stormwater. So those are areas where we can improve on. Now, I have heard that other areas have done desalination or putting dams. Now, of course, have to consult with the experts on that one when I get in. But there may be options there as well to look further into. Regarding cutting councillor jobs, I think that, I'm not a current standing councillor, so I don't know what the exact financials are within the council, but if I was in that, I would look at the options that we had there. Of course, people don't like their rates going up. We don't like, the council doesn't like cutting staff, because they're workers in our community. But I would be open to, looking at doing a full review and looking at what the options are as part of that, and just going through and seeing what our full options are. And that's not just, rates and, staff. It's also the other options in council as well. And there is going to be a tricky time going forward with, the starting $8 million deficit that we will be in next year. So yeah, I would be, open at, reviewing everything. But of course, don't want to be cutting stuff and forcing up rates, excessively. Yeah.
I do believe we've got time for another question or two. So, do you agree?
Yep.
And there's another person right up the back, I think.
I'll take this lady first and we'll come
My name is Meredith Hibbs. My question could be controversial, so no billing. My question is, if you're elected, what would be your stance on the ocean pool, and how will the council fund it without increasing our rates to pay for that?
Great question.
Hello. Yeah, I'm going to start up this end with Rachel.
So the first thing I want to say is that Team Shepherd isn't going to be taking a position on individual issues, but I can speak to my own position on that. And just more broadly, Team Shepherd's going to be making commitments to regionally relevant policies and commitments that each individual councillor will be, if elected, required to think independently, consider their own networks and thoughts and expertise and their balance of things in order to make a decision. For me, in relation to the tidal pool, the advice that we have is that if it were to go ahead, it will have to be pay for use in order to be financially viable whatsoever. And that model was not supported by anyone at all. So that's the first step. That the second issue I would raise is that I think when all the information about the likelihood of the tidal pool going ahead, the environmental impacts, the cost to council to manage it into the future, which would be a requirement for it to go ahead, it will be very clear to everyone once that information is on the table, it's simply not possible to go forward.
Yeah, so regarding this question, it's not something that haven't been able to review the community feedback. I believe that consultation has happened and that a large portion of the population wants that. However, as Rachel just said, that there is quite, a large ongoing maintenance cost of that. As I said, once I get in, I would have to review the finance, to see what I think is going to work, and review the community feedback to really give a good stance on that issue. I just don't have enough information right now to be able to answer that question accurately, because there is very strong community support for it, and there also is quite a problem with the deficits we're going into. So I'm sorry I can't give you a definite on that. I'll have to review both of those to get a better understanding of what needs to be done in terms of that decision. So sorry.
I think it's easily achievable. Libertarians want a big community and a small government, and people link the two all too easily. But there's long before councils became the behemoths that they are, we had parks, we had lookouts, we had community centres. Who built those things? Community groups did, right? And we've got plenty of Rotary parks here. Guess who built those? Rotary, voluntary organisation. We've got a beautiful, just about to open observatory at the Rotary Park. Didn't cost council. Council put in some sewer for it and things like that, but basically didn't cost council anything. So these things can be done by the community. People can fundraise. It's easier than ever with crowdfunding websites and things like that. People that want tidal pools can have a tidal pool.
Thank you very much. So I guess the most recent update in relation to the tidal pool, and we haven't spoken about it for quite some time in council, was the fact that we did provide it in principle support, and I think that continues on for the time being. What the new council want to do with the new councillors is entirely up to them. As you would realise, so far federal and state government funding has given us $4.5 million, and we're just talking about planning and design. Can you imagine the construction? There's a lot of money there, and I don't know if public fundraising, well, it'll take a while and a few barbecues to try and get the money to actually build this particular tidal pool. Again, fantastic idea, great for the community, but at this point in time, when state and federal governments have been making massive cutbacks in services right across the board, the state government has come out and said, we are broke, and therefore you don't get to have planning money for the Wrights Road intersection and Lake Road intersection at this point in time. So services and projects are being cut, and if money isn't flowing down to us, then we're stuck at this point where we can't progress at this point in time. Doesn't mean things won't change. So you still have the in-principle support of council for the tidal pool. How it's funded, that's the hard part at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was one of the councillors that provided the in-principle support so that it could go to the next stage after all the hard work to go to the next stage and have the state government look at it. But the feedback was overwhelmingly the site was highly unlikely to ever succeed. So I'm not sure why that was the site that was chosen to push ahead with. Nevertheless, there we have, maybe Mark thinks Rotary could build the tidal pool. and I'm not sure where, but also who would pay to maintain it. I don't think Rotary pay to maintain these things. Rotary do great work throughout our area, and the Rotary Park up here that actually the playground's being upgraded, that's a $300,000 upgrade that's coming from the environmental levy, actually, that we all pay as ratepayers. So yes, it's nice to build things, but we have to be able to afford to maintain them, renew them, and that's what the hard work that council's been doing in this last term, as far as I'm aware, to get on top of really knowing what these things cost us when we want to provide these things to our community. Can we afford them? How much are they costing in 5 years, 10 years? Thanks.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, Charles Norval from Warhope. Look, it's come to my attention that there's explicit material in the community libraries. Actually, it's actually Australia-wide. Illicit material in the form of child pornography. This is an example of it. I can give you other stuff there that if you want to look at later. I'll be standing over there. So I just want some opinion from the councillors, because I got a letter from David Gillespie, actually, stating that these people were responsible, that they have no moral obligation to the community.
Which people, I'm sorry, which people are responsible? Current councillors.
You and the council.
That we voted to have explicit material in the library.
You want to look?
Just,
I don't need to look, that's okay, thank you very much.
Hold on. Just, what is the question?
I just want their opinion. I want their opinion as to the allegations of child pornography in the community libraries.
Okay, thank you. We'll get the opinions from our councillors and just see what they have to say.
I'll be short and sweet on this. I'm not aware of the material that you're referring to. I'm glad you have examples. Maybe you shouldn't be walking around the street with those examples showing people. Maybe we just let the parents look after their kids in the library. Quiet, please. Maybe we just let the parents go with the kids into the library and determine what material they can access, just like you do when they have their laptops and smartphones, whatever the case may be. You need to ensure that they are in fact looking at the right thing and not going off into other areas. You need to be responsible for your children. Sure, there may be some material there. I mean, there's probably books without pictures that have offensive words in them, but then that's up to you to determine what you think is suitable for your child moving forward. So thank you for the question. I'm not responsible. None of the current councillors are responsible for a decision on having the material in there. It never came to council. It's never been discussed. I'm not quite sure Dr. David Gillespie has anything to do with this in relation to putting the blame on someone. So yeah, good luck with it anyway.
Excuse me, but there's someone with their hand up. Do you? No?
No, yeah. Next question?
Is it a next question that you've got your hand up? Is it a next question that you've got your hand up for, is it?
I'd like to ask a question.
Okay. In relation to the question that's been asked of us, I have no idea what you're talking about, and I don't have an answer for you.
Yes, likewise, the issue hasn't been raised with councillors by David Gillespie or anyone else as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, this is the first time that I've heard of this issue. Obviously, if it is true child pornography, okay, obviously it's going to be inappropriate, but I think that it should be something that should be at least looked into to see what actually the material is and whether or not it is child pornography or not. But at a stance, if it is child pornography, it's not appropriate. And should be restricted. But I think that I really need to see what you're talking about to really give a proper judgment. Yeah, I'm worried that's a bit of a gotcha question there.
I think that was a great answer, Hamish. And I have seen what Charles has got there from about a metre away, and it is disgusting. It's vulgar. It is child pornography, according to the definition, and it needs to go. councillors obviously don't vote on what books are in the library. The councillors hire a CEO, a general manager, who calls themselves a CEO. The general manager hires staff, including librarians. I think if any librarians, anyone up to the director, supports that material being in the library, they need to be mowing our parks or something and getting more vitamin D and not in a decision-making job. And if the CEO supports that, I think the CEO needs to find a new job.
I might just make a comment on the question and say maybe the appropriate place for that question is in writing to the council, so that you can get some satisfactory results. And we had the lady over here, and then if we have time, we have a gentleman. You've got a question? A gentleman up the back. If we have time, we'll see how we go.
Thank you. My question, well, I was actually hoping that we would see all the mayoral candidates here tonight, and I see that we've got 3 out of 4. I was really particularly interested to hear mayoral candidate Roberts' take on, but since he isn't here, and this is the second Meet the Candidate I've been to hope to hear from him. But I'd like to understand each candidate's take on Peter Pinson's unprecedented use, some would say abuse, of the mayoral casting vote. And can we hear from each mayoral candidate, will you be adopting the same tactic if you're elected on the 14th of September? Thank you.
Very interesting to see whether these people are going to be able to handle that one effectively.
Sorry, just to confirm that was about representation for the mayor.
Yes.
So
It'd be interesting to hear from everybody.
yeah, so I'm not running for mayor. I'm just looking at getting in as a councillor just to get a bit of experience and understand how to do it and how to do a good job by the community. But I think that we should be out there as public figures talking with the community and getting that feedback. So that's my stance. I don't think I need to elaborate any further on that. So yeah, thank you.
There's 9 people, including the mayor, and so with an odd number, there's never a split vote. And so this is not likely to be an issue in the new council. It's only an issue because one person resigned, and so there's 8 people. And with 8 people, it is possible to have 4 versus 4, and that deadlock has to be broken somehow. And that's just what the rules say, is that the mayor has a casting vote. There's no other way I can think of to break a deadlock. The mayor was elected, I suppose, in a vote for mayor. And so just bear in mind that when you vote for mayor, you're voting for who will have the casting vote if the councillor numbers end up even rather than odd. So everybody knows that.
Thank you. Good question. And I don't know if we need to go too far into it because we've all seen and heard exactly how that's operating over the past 12, 15 months, whatever the case may be. I guess it's important to note that some of the teams who have put forward their group tickets are running with 4 candidates, the Greens, myself, Shepherd, Labor, all with 4 candidates. So should all 4 get in, there's not going to be a majority in terms of voting power in that respect. So that's an important note. What the other teams want to do with their extra members is entirely up to them. That's fine. It's a democratic process, and it's all above board. But I think we have learnt and gone through the experience that we don't want to see a block. We don't want to see people voting the same way based on the ticket they came in on. So with the 4 tickets that have only put forward 4 members for the group tickets, I think that's probably the best way to go in that respect, to make sure that we have a democratic process in council. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, look, the situation to use a casting vote could come up even with 9 councillors if one councillor is sick. Anybody who's chairing the meeting, so it might not be the mayor, someone might have to stand in if the mayor's away. They have that right as well to use the casting vote as the chair. And I can tell you in this last term, I've chaired 2 meetings, one where I did not use the casting vote even though I could have. I sought consensus and I sought to keep building could we get on common ground? Could we work towards something that everyone's happy with? And if not, I took it away to come back at another meeting and try again to change it a bit more. But on another occasion, I did use it, and I actually felt like at times you really do need to. When there is an impasse and a decision simply has to be made, I don't think that's what we saw in most of the last term. It wasn't that a decision had to be made, and that consensus building process unfortunately just didn't occur.
Look, for context, over the course of, I think it was the first 6 or 7 meetings where the casting vote became available, we saw it used 50 plus times to make decisions that were actually quite controversial. It was used to end debate on a number of times, to make a range of controversial decisions that got very significant loud feedback from our community as well. But and I do think the issue of the casting vote is important. There are norms about how the casting vote is used globally on boards, in other levels of government, and that's about, anyway, I won't go into that. What I think is actually the real issue is block voting, where people vote in a single way, apparently, seemingly, without giving independent consideration to an issue. If there was not block voting of the 14 instant council laws, there wouldn't have been the opportunity for that constant casting vote over and over. On the other hand, you had 4 councillors who were voted from 4 separate tickets who came to a similar decision on a number of matters, not all the time. There are many controversial decisions, in fact, where we voted differently. But I think it's really important that when people are voting, they're doing it with full expectation that councillors, whether they're elected on a single ticket or not, they are thinking independently while working together as a team.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to sneak in one more question, and then we're going to give all of our candidates 2 minutes each just to wrap up.
Thank you so much for hearing me out. I do have a question about the Port Macquarie Airport in relation to air safety that is controlled over Port Macquarie. As seen in the last year, we had Bonset aircraft coming in, and that caused a lot of confusion for the Qantas, for Rex, for those small little JA aircrafts. I want to know if the council is doing anything to improve that air safetiness over Port Macquarie for the airport.
Yeah, I must admit I've not heard of any safety issues that you're referring to. I guess we're all pretty disappointed that we've had another carrier come in and then it quickly disappeared. I was certainly hoping to book that trip to Melbourne and get there for once. But look, I'm not aware of any safety issues. It is a very operational side of the airport that really, councillors, other than being asked to pop up, for a media event, if something new happens, we're not part of any kind of negotiations about getting new carriers in, if that's where your question was going.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I have much more to say on this either, for the fact that we haven't received any information in relation to any concerns at the airport at this point in time. If anything, with less carriers, it's got to be safer, less planes landing. There is a lot of training which is conducted, and again, that's all monitored to make sure that everyone's doing the right thing in that respect. But until I see something or comes to us relating to any concerns at the airport, then I really can't comment on at this point in time. But thank you for raising it anyway, and certainly something we can look into down the track. Thank you.
Yeah, similar. I don't know what safety concerns there are, but I think it's great having an airport in Port Macquarie. That it makes this really a premier coastal place to live and to have a business. And so I think, here to Port Macquarie Airport.
This is the first time that I've heard about issues with the airport. I actually live quite close to it, so that's a bit concerning hearing that if there is an issue. But how I would handle it if I was in there, I would forward those concerns on to staff within the council, or hopefully the issue itself would come through the council correctly and end up in the staff's hand to look into that issue. So that's how I would react to that question. I haven't heard about that particular issue, and I'm not aware of it, but thank you for sharing. And yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, likewise, haven't heard about the issues. I'm just going to walk through a hypothetical. So let's say you sent me an email to raise these issues. In the first instance, I've come back to you and said, wow, this sounds pretty serious. Probably needs to go through staff. You can do that yourself, as Hamish just suggested, so it could direct you back through the council channel directly, or if it seemed like something that was quite urgent and a really serious safety issue presenting right now, I might bring that through the councillor liaison, who would direct it through the appropriate operational channels. So the reason we would do it that way, often direct people back to the council pathway first, because when it's highly operational, if councillors are the ones to raise it, what happens is we go through the council liaison, it goes to the director and it gets filtered down to the staff member. Then from there, before it comes to the community member, it goes back to the director, back to the liaison and back to the councillor before it goes back to the community member. Yeah. And so often the fastest way for you to get things done if it's an operational matter is to contact council directly, ask for a CRM number, make a very specific request that clearly has to be responded to. And that's often the best way to get a response to a quick response to an operational matter.
Okay, thank you very much so far to all our candidates, and thank you very much to all of those people here taking an interest in your local community. You have been, to date, an awesome group of people prepared to listen and ask very good questions. Now, each councillor will now, I'll rephrase it, each candidate will now be given a 2-minute opportunity to just wrap up for the night. Now, a reminder on the timing, you're going to see a green light at 1 minute 30, an amber at 1:45, and the bell will go at 2 minutes. After the 2-minute time, I'll do the same thing. I'll give you 15 seconds or so grace. And if you're still talking now, I'm probably going to come and steal this microphone from you. Because I'm lazy, I'll start at the other end so the microphone ends up back at me.
Thank you. Look, I want to pick up this theme of a 9-person elected council that you're going to be electing on September 14, and keeping in mind that there are people with diverse views and interests in our community. And the point of having 9 councillors is that you get to represent someone, hopefully, who represents your values best of all. You don't know exactly how they're going to be once they're in council, but you'll have the opportunity to get in contact with them. Make sure they know how you feel about particular issues so that you can be adequately represented. It is absolutely critical that you go into this election, and your friends go into this election, and your friends' friends go into this election with a really good understanding of who their candidates are. I want you to keep in mind those candidates that aren't here as well. We're looking at a 9-person council that is going to be elected, and there's a 6-person ticket running. Okay, and that ticket has 3 councillors on it who served throughout this term, who voted in an almost identical way for 3 years over hundreds of votes. Okay, so when you're thinking about who you want representing you into the future, I want you to think of Team Shepherd. We're not putting up a mayoral candidate for mayor, and that's because we want to be a part of the team. So Lisa Intaman, 20 years experience as a councillor, just keeps getting re-elected by our community. Kingsley Searle, who's been in this community for 45 years, I think, 18 years as an RFS captain, serving on the ground at any opportunity he can, and now looking to step into the natural progression into serving his community in a more formal way. And Linda Elborn, whose experience in the corporate sector is fantastic, but in the last 6 years moving to the disability sector, and currently a board member of the Port Macquarie Business Chambers, bringing a really unique perspective on the needs of our community. Most of all, what we need are diverse views, and people who are willing to bring those diverse views to the table respectfully to make the best decisions for you, our whole community. Yeah.
Yeah, that was very good. In closing, what I'd like to say is just, I'm a local bloke, and just trying to run for council for the first time. And I've worked in the community, across, aged care, childcare, in the farm store, and I went to the local schools as well. And I'm just looking for the opportunity, to represent the community and, also the younger section of the community. So it's also doing that, and long-term stable planning, and that's what I'm looking for, is stable to so that when we do get that right, we can look at doing really good projects like the sea pool and things like that. So that's mainly what I want to achieve, is just speak with the community, understand their needs, and then how we can translate that into action on the council and do that in a sustainable way, in terms of financing, but in terms of the future as well. So in closing, that's just what I want to put out there. So thank you all.
Thanks. Yeah, you've heard a bit about my policies. I'll close by telling you a bit about myself and my team and my family. So all of us here, and Bree, who had to leave. Bree's got a young baby, so she had to go. But all of us are parents. All of us are local business people. I've got a farm at Lawn called Bar Bush Co. Many of you have been there for the farm gate tour, which we put on every year with other farms around the Hastings. I've been a university lecturer. I teach economics, innovation and entrepreneurship and management. I've been doing that for the last 15 years. I've had many businesses, from telecommunications consulting through to go-karting over the years. During 2020, 2021, I was president in a voluntary capacity while still teaching and things. I was president of a state sporting organisation, and we were brave. And so we were the only state in Australia in our sport that didn't cave in to the pressure, that we made sure we had our state and national titles that year and an Olympic selection event. We made sure that no athlete was ever excluded for not taking the jab in our sport. We made sure that our elite athletes were still able to train. So we took brave decisions where most people in leadership at that time just caved. They caved to the pressure. They did what everybody else was doing, which was cave in. So what we need is strong leadership to stand up and say, no, it's wrong. And so I've been on various boards. I've been on the board of an overseas aid organisation. I've been on 14 overseas mission trips to many, many different countries of the world. I'm a father of 6 and grandfather of 2. I've got my wife Ilka here and 3 of my kids, the younger 3. And so I believe I've got what it takes to step up, to run for mayor. I might not win as mayor, but I hope you'll elect me as one of your 8 councillors. If you want more information about what we stand for, take one of our literature pieces of paper here. We've got more. My son Kai's there. Kai has a box. So take one of those before you go. Thanks.
Firstly, thank you again, everyone, for coming along tonight and being part of this very democratic process of finding out more details about the candidates, whether they be mayoral or whether they be running on a group ticket. Again, my name is Nick Lipovac, running for the position of mayor, but also with a group ticket of 4 and independent tickets. And I think it's important that if you're heavily involved in the local community, that's a great stepping stone into becoming a councillor. So over the past 21 years, I've been involved as an association president, a club secretary, a team manager, a junior coach. I'm chair of the Port Hastings Sporting Fund. I had 10 years of coordinating fundraising to purchase paediatric equipment for our local hospitals. Sporting Volunteer of the Year, Oxley Oval Clubhouse Construction Committee Business Award winner. That's a bit of a bio, a bit of a resume as to where what I've done in the local area since arriving in 2003. And during this term of council, I've stood up and spoken on many issues, but in particular highlighting our need for a new housing strategy, providing a wider range of homes with a greater percentage of affordable homes, and doing what we can for the most vulnerable members of our community. This has been and will continue to be one of my big priorities, and my team and no doubt the council moving forward. I've been working on increasing the number of local businesses successfully vying for council tenders, putting more money back into the community. supporting tourism and drawing more events to our region. Again, more money, economic benefits for our local area. Improving sporting facilities, a better road network, safer beaches, and the list goes on. So you are looking on the day, September 14, Team Lipovac. That is Group D on the ballot paper. Easy to remember, D for democracy. We'll work on improving and nailing the basics of council's responsibilities to provide a strong platform for us to build on in the future. Let me also add, when elected as the mayor, the community will benefit from my positive relationship with state and federal members and our local chambers in the Camden Haven, Warhope and Port Macquarie, something we haven't had for a number of years. Team Lipovac includes John Bailey, Ellen Krebers and Luke Garrell, and we are committed to our community. Thank you very much.
Hello, and as the last speaker, thanks again for coming out tonight. It really is important that you do get to know who you might be voting for and what they stand for. I stood last time on a platform of acting on climate change, biodiversity, housing, and active transport. And I've surveyed some of the community and heard that those are still top priorities for them. I'm happy to say it was really well aligned with the community strategic plan that was adopted in last term of council. So your vision for the community, which is called Imagine 2050, these are the sorts of things that you said you wanted to see. So I'm more than happy to keep pursuing those sorts of things for you in this next term. But no matter who gets in, no matter what your council's made up of, please make sure that you expect the reinvigoration of community committees and partnerships, working together, building the vision together. Many hands make light work, and we really do have to do the heavy lifting together. So no matter who is elected next term, please do push for that. Make sure that you're having a say in the shape of things, that your input is actually making a difference, that when you go and spend the time to fill in those surveys and give that feedback, that the councillors are really taking it into consideration when they then turn around and vote for you. So thanks very much for coming out, and please look very carefully into all of the candidates and make a really informed decision, and don't forget to preference, because in case your first choice doesn't get in, you want to have a say where your next choice flows to.
Just give one more round of applause for these guys. They've given up their time for you tonight. Now, before we close off, I'd just like to thank you for putting up with me as the moderator tonight. This is my last little few words, and all I can really say is, if I was one of you, I'd have got a fair idea of the representative type of people that are available for me to vote for if I was going to vote, which I'm not, because I'm going to vote in town. Now, which is a good thing. You want a moderator that just got really no idea, don't you? So before we go, I'd just like to congratulate Greg Franks and his team from the Hastings Residents Association, and just hand over to Greg to close the proceedings tonight.
Thank you, Rob. Well, first, would you please thank Rob for the job he did tonight? Now, if you missed something, we have been live streaming on YouTube, and you can watch it again if you're anxious to get a bit more of tonight. It will be under the title of Meet the Candidates, Port Macquarie. Now, if you didn't get to ask your question tonight, please come and see me, and we'll try and get it on at one of our future forums. We are trying to wear the candidates out, so there'll be more to come. We are planning on having one next week in Warhope. So come and see me after the meeting tonight if you want to get yourself down for a question there. And other than that, I just again like to thank all the candidates for their effort tonight. It's terrific to see so many of the candidates, all but one group, come along tonight and put themselves open to your questions, many of which they had no notice of, and they came here without much experience in some case and gave a great effort in letting you know what they would do for you if you elect them. So I thank them for doing that. And we look forward to seeing them again one day next week. I'll be in touch with you guys to see what date you're available. And beyond that, we're looking at hosting some more down at Laurelton or Lake Cat Eye as well. and in concluding with a mayoral debate probably the week before the election for the mayoral candidates, and we'll see how many of the candidates have survived that long. Thanks again. Good night.
I'll be back.